False. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Overnight, a string of dangerous thunderstorms slamming the Northeast, washing away cars and collapsing roads.
That's insane.
27 million people now under flood alerts across the Northeast, from eastern New York to New Hampshire.
A lot of traffic, a lot of water.
Oh my gosh.
Torrential downpours leaving drivers stranded, like this apocalyptic scene in Orange County, New York, which is now under a state of emergency.
Be advised, Main Street and the traffic circle is completely underwater. I got a car going down the river.
Rain totals there reaching nearly 8 inches, creating hazardous sinkholes in the road. As the sweeping storms turned catastrophic, officials say one woman was killed trying to evacuate her home. The National Weather Service in New York urging residents to avoid the roads, warning stay away or be swept away.
Oh, God.
Drivers dealing with swamped roads throughout the region. In Pennsylvania, nearly 10 inches of water left vehicles submerged.
But I just watched my car just swim away.
While parts of Connecticut were hammered by about 5 inches of rain in just over an hour. And it comes as Americans in the South and West are dealing with the extreme heat that's been baking the region. And Southwest temps are expected to stay between 105 to 120 degrees this week, including in some parts of California, where another disaster struck in Los Angeles County, a massive landslide causing evacuations of homes in Rolling Hills Estates. While back east, residents look for rescues as a deluge of devastating weather wreaks havoc on the region.
And the landslide brought me down. Oh, mirror. I mean, what are you going to do? You got to sing, right? You got to sing. This is what happens when you have a country that gets its religious advice from Joe Rogan, okay? Its medical advice from RFK Jr., and its environmental advice from freaking Texas, okay? This is where you end up. And every single scientist that studies the atmosphere, that studies climate, that studies, the clouds and the heat domes and all, they're all, and El Nino and La Nina and all of the, jet streams and the changes in the jet stream and everything else are saying this is the I told you so moment that we did not want to have. Where here it has happened. Global warming looks like this. Thusly is what it looks like, okay? This is climate change. This is global warming. It's here. It's with us. And the only answer to the dilemma is to stop emitting the CO2 into the air. Stop it. And like I said, people aren't, they're not going to take. So I wanted to remind you that, when I was flying over the country, it really did shock me. That's why I keep bringing it up. It just really shocked me to look down when I was flying from Florida to LA and to see all of the wind farms over places like Oklahoma and Texas, places where they deny that renewables are an answer or the answer or part of an answer. They are not, as far as Greg Abbott. Forget about being woke, okay? Greg Abbott doesn't even want you conscious. And I know this because during this massive heat wave, on the first day of the giant heat wave that is so much longer than heat waves used to be, he actually decided that they would not give water breaks to construction workers. Remember that? Hard to remember because, it was like a couple of weeks ago when the heat wave began. But that's what Abbott wanted. That's what he said. He said, do not give construction workers water breaks. Because, like I said, he doesn't want you to forget woke. He doesn't even want you to be alive. He doesn't want you to be conscious. Very sad, very sick. You know the one place that doesn't have air conditioning in Texas? Do you know? Prisons. Mm-hmm. No, that'd be fine if you hate prisoners so much, that you're like, good. Let them die of heat stroke. Let them die of dehydration. Let them wriggle on the floor in agony. Yeah, but what if you're making a living by being a corrections officer? Oops, forgot about them. Because that's what you do. Careless. So sorry about your situation, corrections officer. Sorry. but they don't give a rat's ass about, any. But here's the thing about the wind farms. The reason why Texas is still on the grid and able to provide electricity for air conditioning to Texans right now is because of the increase in renewable energy generation that is now on their grid. Now, what's crazy about it is it works, and yet they're against it. They're against it. So Abbott and his Republican legislature want to now create obstacles for renewables, okay? And they would like, in Texas, you could put an oil rig in front of a kinder care. You could put an oil rig in front of a hospital. You can put an oil rig in front of a cancer care. Do you know what I'm saying? They don't really can't wear perfume, but you can have an oil rig right in front of the cancer care. Yeah, they don't permit. They don't need a permit. They don't need no stinking permit. But now, if you do renewables, they want you to have to ask permission to put a solar panel on your company, on your business, on your home. They want to create a permit structure that, big oil and gas doesn't have for renewables, for wind turbines, and obviously for solar panels. So far, they haven't been able to get even the psychos in Texas's supermajority Republican legislature to greenlight that particular, affliction to inhibit renewable energy generation. But it's something that they are considering and thinking about, and they keep introducing. Now, that's how sick and twisted oil and gas and fossil fuel industry donors are. That's how protective they are of their industry, of their ability to generate, gouging prices for you. But here we are, everybody. Here we are, and it's not just America. Just in case you thought, well, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong. It's everywhere, okay? India has massive flooding. They have landslides there. China, Beijing, 104 degrees in Beijing, 104 degrees, okay? It's all over the world. It's landslides and heat waves and flooding, and this is like a sci-fi movie from the 90s. What was that? The Day After Tomorrow? Was that the one?
Oh, yeah, that one was the really cold one, right?
I don't know. I can't remember. There's so many, disaster movies. Which one was the heat one and the landslide one and the flooding one? And
I don't know, but I guarantee The Rock was in it.
Yeah. Well, Elton John's free. He can. Can I just say this? What are you doing throwing your crap at rock stars now, at performers? What is that about now?
And I cannot believe they've made me feel bad for Harry Styles.
Right.
I love to hate this guy. And now I see him get pegged in the face at one of his concerts by one of his fans. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Well, it's not just him, okay? I mean, Drake got nailed in the face, too.
Baby Rexha.
Baby Rexha
yes.
did. And this girl, I don't even know who she is, Kelsey Ballerini.
Yep. Did you see Adele challenged
her
fans?
Yes, good for her.
Yeah, good for her. She's a tough broad,
It's like, don't you try it at my concert. I'll come down there. Don't make me come down there. Yeah, I love the tough girl with the great voice. I mean, gotta say, that's like, woo. And with the long nails, she can mash your eyeball out. You know that, right? This is the woman's superpower, is when you have the very long, spiky, even the coffin shape will do it too. But you could take that nail and you could stick it in someone's eyeball and mash their eyeball right out like you're a CIA agent or something like that. She'll do it. She's your girl.
She is a cussing, fighting, tough pop star, and I love her.
Yeah, I do too. She's amazing. I would love to, just to throw down with her one time, like one Friday night with Adele. I would. I know, I would make her sing though. Then she would hate me. But I mean, what is going on that people are just chucking stuff from the audience at people on stage who are entertaining you? I mean, did you forget that you paid $1,000 for your ticket? I mean, like, what is going on in your pea brain? I honestly don't know. But we're listen, we're in bad shape. We're in bad shape. This is the moment for everybody to take stock.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
So during this current heat wave, the key reason Texas was able to actually meet the demand, the increased demand, and avoid prolonged, potentially deadly blackouts? Green energy.
Hello.
Solar and wind power are credited with keeping Texans' AC running as these temperatures have soared. And while Texas has invested heavily in what is proving to be life-saving renewable energy, Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott is fighting those initiatives. When promoting a proposed tax incentive program for energy production in Texas earlier this year, Governor Abbott's big red line was that no renewable energy products be included because he wants to focus on dispatchable power, such as natural gas or coal. Right now, most of the country is grappling with various heat waves. Models from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration estimate that 20% of Americans in the contiguous United States will experience dangerous temperatures this week. The worst of it will be in the Southwest. Phoenix has already seen temperatures above 110 degrees for 8 consecutive days. And weather models show the temperature surpassing 110 degrees every single day for the foreseeable future in Phoenix and other parts of the Southwest. If the forecast plays out as expected, this will be the worst and longest heat wave in America's history. We know that as a country and as a planet, we need to cut our emissions to try to limit the worst effects of climate change, but that's already happening. Last year, the Biden administration launched the first ever extreme heat response plan. It's a 10-point initiative to help the nation handle extreme heat waves. And as tens of millions of us will face this reality today and tomorrow and potentially all summer, we need the knowledge and the tools to protect ourselves and each other, because this is not an anomaly. This is our new normal.
Yeah, this is it. This is what climate change looks like. It's here. It is absolutely 100% here. That is just a fact. And like I said, if you want to get your environmental advice from Greg Abbott, go with God. Good luck to you. What can I tell you? I mean, honestly, people, just thought they could wish it away, pray it away, think it away, thoughts and prayers everywhere. No, it's here. This is it. This is what it looks like. And what's going to happen is there are going to be more and more days of over 110 degree weather in more and more places in the world, including the Southwest, including the Southeast, including the Northeast, including, it's just, it's going to be everywhere. And the idea that, the rains are going to be more massive, you're going to get more rain per day than you've ever seen before. I saw this one number that just freaked me out so bad because, like I said on Friday, it would be better if we just use Celsius because it would stop global warming, or at least make it feel less hot. And another thing is the weather, the climate, the temperature, usually on this trajectory that we've been on, increased in the month of June by 0.1%, or sometimes 1/100th and of a degree, not a percent, of a degree. And this June, it increased by 0.5 degree. Now, these are very small numbers, so maybe you could understand it better if I say it that way. Maybe you can understand that we went up in temperature by 0.5 degree, and normally you go up in temperature by 1/10 of a degree when the warming first started. Can you see that it's getting warmer, faster, and lasting longer? And now we're facing an El Nino, and El Nino typically means warmer weather. So good luck. What can I tell you? It's like, and if you look at Texas, okay, he is fighting it tooth and nail. And by it, I mean to stop emitting fossil fuels, to stop emitting, it's not just their politics that's poison in Texas. Texas is poisoning the planet in a real big way. That's what I'm saying. If you want your environmental advice from Greg Abbott, good luck to you. Good luck, because he's doing a few things there that are just so freaky. One of them is, not giving permits to renewables, not giving, or making you have to get a permit to put solar panels on your business, or solar panels on your house, or solar panels on a building you own, right? That's what he wants. He wants permits for that, but not for oil rigs. They can go everywhere and anywhere without a permit. And the same thing for wind farms. He wants those to be permitted too, but not oil and gas rigs, not anything to do with fracking or natural gas, extraction. No, none of that. And I promise you, one of the solutions they're going to have for these record-breaking temperatures is going to be stop keeping records. It's who they are. That's their solution to everything. Like I said, this stupid solution of using Celsius instead of Fahrenheit, expect them to actually take that from the jokey realm and make that reality. I mean, honestly, anything at all to keep the donor money, coming, to keep them flush in cash. Anything at all to make the Koch brothers happy. Anything at all to, do a nice little soothing salve on, ExxonMobil's interests. I swear, this is where we are. And it's deadly and it's scary. But, you're welcome, Texas, because the only reason why you don't have rolling blackouts this summer, the only reason why is because renewable energy was easy. It was easy to hook up to your grid. It is hooked up to your grid. It's creating, last summer, I think you got 30% of your electricity generated by wind and solar, energy being stored in batteries and then deployed when you need it. That's how it works. This year, it's up to almost 40%. Almost 40%. So that's going in the right direction for those of you who are looking for hope. But for those of you who really can't fathom what I'm saying, doesn't make sense to you, can't figure your way out of the paper bag here, this is your guy. This is him. I'm going to show you this. I hate playing him because he just, he's such a felon. He's such a... Please, when you do jail him, could you not put him in like, a place with air conditioning? Put him in Texas. Put him in a Texas jail. Put him in a Texas prison where they have no AC. Okay? And then ask him this question again. He was in Iowa. Apparently, Iowans have an issue with CO2 carbon capture, with, that. They want to, and I don't even know if this technology is the right technology. I'm not saying this is the only technology or this is the way to go. I don't know. I just know that people in Iowa are very apprehensive about a pipeline that would be laid across Iowa to capture carbon from ethanol plants, to capture carbon from factories, okay? I don't know if that's the ideal way to do it, but it is a thing, and it's got possibility, let's put it that way. Somebody in Donald Trump's little audience, because, he's in Iowa, saying, I couldn't believe this. I'm not even going to play this because it's just so obnoxious. But he went to a Dairy Queen because it's freaking Iowa. And he said, take care of these people. What do they want? And they said, we want blizzards. And he was like, what the hell is a blizzard? What the hell? All right, I don't know what a blizzard is. Take care of these people. You don't know what a Dairy Queen blizzard is? Then never leave Manhattan, okay? Never, ever go anywhere outside. Don't even go to the Berkshires, okay? Don't leave Manhattan. Anyway, then he, actually went and spoke to caucus goers, people who would, they're interviewing to see who they want to caucus for. That's what goes on in Iowa. And a lady asked him about this pipeline.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
I'd like to know how you can help us in Iowa save our farmland from the CO2 pipeline.
Yeah. Well, we're working on that. And we had a plan to totally, it's such a ridiculous situation, isn't it? But we had a plan, and we would have instituted that plan, and it was all ready. But we will get it back. If we win, that's going to be taken care of. That will be one of the easy things we do.
Does anybody think he knew what he was talking about there or what she was asking about there? Does anybody think he understood? He didn't know whether he should be for or against the CO2 pipeline there. And that's why he said, we're working on that. Where is he working? I don't even know where he works. Where is his little shop? Okay, where is his little, toy shop? Where does he work? Where's his workbench? At Magaloco? I don't know. But I'm going to play this real quick because it's just, less than 20 seconds. She's like, will you please help the Iowa farmers with the CO2 pipeline? And he doesn't know if he's supposed to be for it or against it or what it is.
I'd like to know how you can help us in Iowa save our farmland from the CO2 pipeline.
Yeah. Well, you know we're working on that, and you know we had a plan to totally. It's such a ridiculous situation, isn't it? But we had a plan, and we would have instituted that plan, and it was all ready. But we will get it back. If we win, that's going to be taken care of. That will be one of the easy things we do.
He has no idea whether he's for it or against it or what it is or where it goes or what it does or how it goes. Has no clue. No clue. And you know, this is serious and we need serious people. Okay. He's such a BS artist that, you know, he does take it up to the Rembrandt level, the artistry of the BS. That was just pure Trump. Okay. That was just pure Trump right there. Didn't know which side of the fence he was supposed to be on the issue, wasn't sure what the issue was. And so he just said, we'll take care of it quickly, strongly. We'll take care. We could have taken care of it before, but, you know, when we're back in, that is something that we'll do, you know, fast. That's easy. That's quickly. Our plan was to totally, you know, it's really strange, isn't it? You know, and climate scientists are like, listen, you want to stop climate change? Here's how.
If we stop emitting, as soon as we stop emitting, Earth's temperature stopped going up. Oh. So if we were to stop emissions, let's say in the next 20 or 30 years, at that point where we no longer are emitting and perhaps we begin to suck some of that carbon dioxide back out of the atmosphere, at that point, we stop warming the atmosphere. That matters. Every 1/10 of a degree matters. But yes, you're going to have to wait to see the fruit of your labor. We have already injected a lot of heat into the atmosphere and the oceans. The heat that we've injected into the oceans will be there for hundreds and hundreds of years, melting ice. Yeah. We might be able to slow the progression of that kind of thing, but a lot of sea level rise is baked in, which means we're going to see meters of sea level rise in the future. The key here is slowing it down so we can adapt, and nature, animals and plants can adapt as well.
I mean, you know, there's only one answer. It's, you know, pretty straightforward, don't you think? Stop spewing all this garbage into the air. Stop with the CO2. Try and recapture it. That's what the pipeline is supposedly trying to do. I don't know if it's the best way to do something like that. I mean, the only reason why it came across my desk is because I heard him hedge on it, and I said, what the hell is this? And let me look it up. And it turns out that, you know, it's carbon capture and storage. Again, don't know if this is the best way to do it or if there are other ways to do it. But I just wanted to know what the hell was she asking him about, and why, you know, he wants to be president of the United States again. I don't. And so, you know, he just bullcrapped his way through this. Apparently it's supposed to transport CO2 from ethanol plants and from fertilizer plants, where you create a lot of CO2 in the creation of fertilizer and in the creation of ethanol. That's what it is. And people don't want it on their soil. They don't want it on their land. Their land is their, you know, their fortune. The land is how they make a living. I get that. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that, I haven't thought about it, haven't thought it through. I'm not going to sit here and just off the top of my head or pull it out of some body part and just say, that's easy. You know, we could solve that quickly. And, you know, isn't it crazy? It's so ridiculous. And I could totally, I don't know, but it's just so ridiculous. Yeah. So, you know what? No more unserious people. No more. Meanwhile, the reason why we have the renewable stockpile that we have, that's keeping Texas air conditioned, that's keeping, you know, Florida air conditioned, that's keeping places that usually have, you know, blackouts, rolling blackouts if you're lucky, sometimes blackouts for hours, sometimes for days, is because we have developed renewable fuel sources, renewable energy, renewable ways to get onto the grid, store the energy that can be created with wind power, with solar power, store that in batteries, just like you would store anything else electrical, and then deploy it when you need it the most. And somehow that's a bad thing. Somehow, you know, they're like, no, we want to put obstacles in the way for clean, renewable energy. The only reason why there is clean, renewable energy is because of Joe Biden, the Inflation Reduction Act, the investment that private business could expect to get in their private business. And private business said, now's the time to actually invest in ourselves, because it'll be, it's like, you know, when we do the, it's like when we do the pledge drives. Okay. Days where we just ask you to pledge money, we do okay. But days when we say we'll match it, days when we say, for every dollar you give, your dollar becomes two, that's what corporations look for too. It's not just you, okay? Corporations look for those opportunities as well. And believe me, they were watching the Inflation Reduction Act. They were watching the Infrastructure Act. They were watching Build Back Better to see if Build Back Better, and better means renewables, would actually pass. And they waited. They waited to make their investments until they understood what would pass and what did get signed into law. And then they had their lawyers and their government relations people look at the pieces of legislation and decide whether or not this was the time for them to deploy their own money. Would it be matched? Would it be matched? And the answer was yes. And that's why you see the amount of renewable energy, from last summer to this summer increase by, 10 and 20% here and there, because people are actually, being invested in, and they're deploying their money too. Now, I honestly, it's just pretty basic stuff. But you do have these sycophants, these people who are greased by the polluting forces in this equation, and they're going to protect their gravy train. Sure, it's at your peril. Sure, it's at the peril of your children and the peril of our planet. And sure, it's the most unchristian thing to do if you believe God gave you this beautiful blue marble and put it in your care, right? I'll tell you something. Some of the brands, I don't know what to call it, brands of Christianity in this country, your Christ really sucks. I gotta say, your Christ wants you to hate people and to pollute the planet. Really? What a sucky God.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
A federal court ruling for the first time clearing the way for a ban on gender-affirming care for people under 18. The court allowing the law in Tennessee to go into effect immediately. ABC's Mary Alice Parks is joining us in Washington with more. And Mary Alice, what's the impact now across the country?
Yeah, this ruling is unique, and the impact could be big. Several other courts across the country have said that similar bans in Arkansas, Alabama, and Florida could not go into effect because they could discriminate against transgender youth. But yesterday, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals saying that Tennessee's ban could go into effect, at least for now. The court is still reviewing the underlying case. This is a ban on hormone therapy and puberty blockers. The law in Tennessee prevents medical providers from beginning any new transition care, but also stopping treatments already underway. Now, we've seen across the country this big push from Republican-led state houses. They prioritize getting these sorts of bans on the books. 20 states have passed bans on this kind of care for minors.
Okay. So when in American history, it's a riddle for you. This could be a Jeopardy question. The answer is what is never. But when in American history have you ever seen a court insert itself into a medical decision that says you must stop taking an FDA-approved medication because we don't like it? When has that ever happened? What is never correct? Choose again. They're doing it with everything. They're doing it with, mifepristone too, an FDA-approved drug for women, okay? And they want to say you cannot have it, even though it's prescribed and common and been in use for over 30 years around the world, 20 years in the United States, but 30 around the world. And the idea, the reason that they're using, the way that they, get there from here, the way that they actually get to the point where they say you have to stop taking an FDA-approved medicine that was prescribed in consultation with your family provider. They say originalist interpretation of the United States Constitution. I swear to God. They say if the founders didn't conceive of it in the original document, meaning while the founders did guarantee privacy, they didn't say the word abortion, right? Which was deeply rooted in American tradition for the last 50 years. But that's not the years that they want to look at. They want to look at pre-50 years ago, and they want to look at 1779 years ago, okay? They want to look at that, 247 years ago, and they want to say, what did the founders understand privacy to include? Well, it didn't include intimate relations at home, because they didn't say anything about intimate relations at home. So now they get what? To go in your bed. It didn't say anything about, terminating a pregnancy, although we know women have been terminating their pregnancies since women got pregnant. Everything now, if they can't see that it was deep, these are their words. They said, transgender care is not deeply rooted in the nation's history or tradition, thus not protected by the United States Constitution. What? I know that sounds like real good bumper sticker stuff, but that also means that slavery is now back. It's, in vogue, because that 3/5 of a person, that was in the Constitution, okay? Same-sex marriage, this is the same thing that they're going to use to, get rid of Obergefell, right? We all know that. But, what was deeply rooted in the founding? Stealing indigenous lands, school segregation, that was going on. That was a thing. Gender-specific dress codes, that was a thing too. Women not being able to own property, that was deeply rooted in the Constitution. The idea that women couldn't vote, deeply rooted in the Constitution. Neither could blacks vote, but, Jim Crow laws. Yes, they're deeply embedded in the roots and traditions of the United States. Why? It's only been a mere 60 years since we decided that we thought, we would send thoughts and prayers for Jim Crow segregation. We thought we would send thoughts and prayers to, registering black voters, to the people that would go do such work. We thought we would send them off with thoughts and prayers, and then if they ended up dead on the side of the road, well, we tried. We sent our thoughts and prayers. But I mean, this is what I'm trying to explain to you is going on with Clarence and Gorsuch and Amy and even little Brett, okay, Kavanaugh. This is so heinous and so ugly and so detrimental to making progress on issues of equality, justice, human rights, blah, blah, blah. Never going to happen. If this is the way we interpret the Constitution, that they don't see the words in there, and the founding fathers meant privacy was for men only, and meant women were chattel, and meant 3/5 of a person, and that they didn't mean the more perfect union stuff, and they didn't mean the pursuit of happiness swill. They didn't mean medical care, because I don't see anything about penicillin for people with chlamydia or drippy penises. I don't see anything for the syphilitic suffering that we encountered in our history. Penicillin's only around since 1947. People, it's not deeply rooted. It's not deeply. So this is frightening, and this is crazy, and this is going to the Supreme Court. There's no doubt, because every other court, every other circuit, okay, this is the 6th Circuit. They have come up with a much different conclusion about what is guaranteed in the United States Constitution and to whom than every other circuit court, appellate court level. Every single one. Almost every, except for the 6th, all said, you can't tell people to stop taking an FDA-approved drug that's been prescribed for them by their doctor that prevents them from committing suicide, because you think you know better than doctors? You think you know more about this than science? See, again, we end up in that sticky realm of science. There's nothing in the Constitution about science or wind turbines or renewable energy or batteries. There's nothing in there, so therefore there are no protections, and you can't legislate it because it's not in the. I don't know. I mean, this is so deadly and so dangerous and so bizarre. But this is really who they are, and this is how they want to make decisions. And so, because there's disagreement in the appellate courts, because the Sixth Circuit is disagreeing with all the others about whether or not there is a constitutional protection for a child to have medical care and to be able to take a FDA-approved prescribed drug. It's going to go to the Supreme Court, and they're going to decide. And, it'll be just like Dobbs, because how did they, decide that they were going to send this back to the states at all? How did they do that, right? They did that by saying it's not, deeply rooted in our Constitution. It's not deeply rooted in our traditions, except for the last 50 years it is. And that's what every single controversy, every single decision is going to be based on now. That if you can't read and let me tell you, the Establishment Clause is pretty clear. People understand, or some people understand, that the United States is not a fill-in-the-blank religious state. It's not a fill-in-the-blank, nation, blank nation, because of the Establishment Clause that forbids an establishment of a national religion, and that is for the preservation of church and state. That's why it's like that. And some people will say there is no separation of church and state in the Constitution because they don't see those words, and they can't for themselves understand that the Establishment Clause, which bans the establishment of a national religion, is the separation. But they don't see those words, and it confuses them. And so they will argue with you that we are a Christian nation because they don't see separation of church and state in the Constitution. But that's what the Establishment Clause is calling for. That's what it does. It says this is not a fill-in-the-blank religious nation because we cannot establish a national religion. That is what we're about to go through. And this thing with the guns and the spousal abusers, because it's not in the Constitution, spousal abuse. It's not. Wife beating is not in the Constitution as something you should be protected from. Think about that.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
There are 18 different states that have now enacted laws that restrict in some way access to gender transition care for kids. In Utah, you have said that you are just pausing access to that kind of care. You're not banning it. Do you have an end date to that pause? What specifically is the kind of data and research you need to see to say you will allow for it?
Yeah, so we don't have an end date, but we do need more data and more information, and the legislature has been clear on that. Ultimately, the legislature would have to run a bill to unpause that, depending on what that that data comes back. I've been very vocal about this. This is such a charged topic that it's been impossible, I believe, to get good information here in the United States right now, because half the country doesn't want to touch it, and the other half is convinced that they already know the answer. And so I've really tried to look elsewhere at conversations that are happening in other countries, specifically in Europe, around this, where it's not quite as charged, looking at Sweden and Finland and France and the UK, other countries where they don't have the same culture war battles that we're having here, where it's either too political or you can't say anything about it, to see what they're finding out, and they're also pushing pause. I mean, many of those countries are saying, look, this is
a specific part of it. Is
On
it
both.
hormone treatment, puberty blockers, surgery?
Both, all of the above, yeah.
Because the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, and the American Academy of Pediatrics have said this kind of care, that they've rejected the claims that it is harmful.
Yeah, all
but
very political groups.
What?
And
You
again,
believe all of them?
I believe that they are politicized. Those groups are politicized.
The
I don't
American
believe.
Academy of Pediatrics.
I absolutely do. Yes.
There's your governor of Utah trying to sound reasonable, but he has a very unreasonable legislature who overrode his veto. You know, he actually vetoed the banning of transgender children's care. He vetoed it. He said, I want them. You may your brand of Christianity or your brand of intolerance might actually say that these kids should not be tended to in the medical environment that knows how to tend to them, to take care of them, to help them live full and normal, productive lives. You may be totally against that, but I, as governor, want them to live. That was his position. But I want them to live. Don't you want them to live? Which leads you down the road of if their brand of Christianity favors discrimination against children, or that the price of freedom is dead children, then your God sucks. I'm sorry. I'm just so done with it. I really am. And so now I'm looking across the country to see which Republicans, and he was one that I stumbled upon, who actually says, listen, I might disagree with the prescription. I might disagree with the doctor. I might disagree with the parents who are choosing this. But, I just want these kids to live. I just want them to have full and wonderful, productive, happy lives. And if I make a mistake, will make the mistake on the side of that. I would rather be wrong on the side of living, enjoying, being productive in a life than living under my creed, my demands, and causing somebody to die or to commit suicide and so I'm running across some of these Republicans, and there's one in Louisiana. His name is Senator Fred Mills Jr. He's the chairman of the Health and Welfare Committee in the Louisiana Senate. He is not a LGBT hero. He voted for noxious bills, one that limits what schools can teach. The Don't Say Gay bill, he voted for that. And another one that gives teachers the right to ignore a student's chosen gender, to just call them whatever the teacher feels comfortable calling that child, no matter how that child, chooses to present themselves, right? But he actually voted against a bill banning the gender-affirming healthcare because at first he killed it in committee. Okay. And then once it found another committee that was more friendly and made its way to the Senate floor, he voted against it again on the Senate floor. And the reason why is because he's a pharmacist. He's a pharmacist. And he explained, because he understands science, that, quote, always in my heart of hearts have I believed that a decision should be made by a patient and a physician. I believe in the physicians in Louisiana. I believe in the scope of practice. I believe in the standard of care. He said what's really troubling about this bill is basically it says that if you are presently stabilized on this treatment, you have to be weaned off. Why would that have to happen? Do you understand what I'm saying? I have never seen a government say to people who are successfully taking an FDA-approved medication prescribed by their doctor in tandem with their family because they are minors, right? And they can't, just go in and see a doctor on their own. You have to have parental consent, right, to even be in the doctor's office and to even go fill the prescription and all that. I have never seen the government force people to stop taking their medication. I've never seen it. In Utah, where this governor is, there was a Republican state senator. His name was Daniel Thatcher. He's a very consistent vote against anti-trans bills because he worked on hate crime legislation and suicide prevention. And so he understood through his work on suicide prevention and hate crime legislation that you must, A, consider the data, and 2, meet actual people who are affected by this anti-trans legislation. And so after he was, done doing, that, he said, I can't support a ban on trans students. I can't. And also this governor here, Margaret was asking him, why in the world is everybody so, I don't know, vocal about banning transgendered athletes, especially the boys who transition to female? Why is that a thing when, for example, in your state, there are 4 people? 4. So why is this a national topic or a topic for the governor of the state of Utah when this particular piece of legislation would literally affect 4 people?
Can I ask you specifically about a bill that is now law? You had an interesting stance on this. You rejected the bill initially. Your legislature overrode your veto. It's now law. And it would bar transgender students from participating in girls' sports. According to the reporting at the time, there were just 4 transgender players.
4.
In the entire state out of 85,000 student athletes. At the time, you argued for empathy when you vetoed this. You said these are just 4 kids trying to get through the day. Rarely has so much fear and anger been directed at so few. On the national level, as you just are indicating, it is resonating with someone. Otherwise, you wouldn't have all these Republican candidates for president talking about the specific issue of girls in sports. Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump. Why?
Well, because I think there are some
4
examples.
kids in Utah being a presidential candidate has to talk about this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think if we hadn't had such a high
profile,
at Penn. And I want to say it's not just the right. There are a lot of feminists that are worried about this too.
I guess the question is, there are lots of feminist issues that some could take up. Yeah. Why this one particular one? What is it about this one issue?
Well, probably because it's very easy and it's human nature to other people, right? It's human nature to treat people who are different than us with disrespect and a lack of dignity.
Isn't that why we have laws that protect people from other people's hatred and fear of them? Isn't that why we have laws that actually protect women from misogynists and rapists? Isn't that why we protect children from...
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Today, there are so many backseat drivers telling us what to do, and we've got regulators that are discarding science and telling physicians how to practice medicine, putting barriers in care. In at least 6 states now, if I practice evidence-based care, I can go to jail. It's frightening. When a patient shows up in my office, if I do the right thing from a scientific, from an ethical perspective, to know that that care is no longer legal, criminalized, and could wind me in prison.
That is the president of the American Medical Association trying to explain to you that you got too many, Monday morning quarterbacks on the field. It makes no sense, and it's all because of hatred, and it's all because of otherization. And even when you ask the governor of Utah, why do you think it is that people are hyper alert about 4 transgendered athletes in elementary school, middle school, and high school sports? 4, when there are 85,000 athletes in Utah, school athletes in Utah. Why are they so hyper focused on these 4? And you said in your veto, when you wrote down why you were vetoing the ban on transgendered care, you said, and also banning, the sports thing. He said, rarely has so much fear and anger been directed at so few. I don't understand what they are going through or why they feel the way they do, but I want them to live. That is why the Governor Cox, governor of Utah, said he was vetoing the bill, which is admirable, considering nobody has told him yet that he's completely gay. But this is why we have laws. And when you ask him, like, why are people hyper-focused on it? He admits it's because it's easy. Because we have a culture war going on right now. Because people are uncomfortable, and so they have to bully those that make them feel uncomfortable. They have to otherize people. It's human nature. I got news for you. It's not human nature. It's maybe Hitler's nature. It's maybe Nazi nature to otherize people and blame others for your lot in life because it's easy. That is like the path of least resistance. I don't know that that's normal or that that's most of us or that's majority of us, because when I look at the numbers, that's not borne out by the theory that it's easy and that's what people normally do. The numbers tell us that we live in a society, we live in a culture, we live in a country, we live in a nation that believes in freedom, for real, that believes in freedom to live, that believes in freedom to go and get treated for, some sort of an idea that you could be cured, by going by looking to medicine, even though some people don't understand what the hell it is that ails you. Listen, the whole thing is ridiculous. We have laws protecting people from haters. Okay, we do. We have laws that protect us from bullying. We have laws that protect us from people blocking our entry into a school. We have laws that, say, you want to risk your life? Go ahead, risk your life. You want to be an adventurer? You want to jump out of airplanes? You want to scale mountains? You want whatever? Go for it. But don't risk my life. That would be illegal. Don't fly me in a plane that you know is unsafe. Don't fly me in a plane and crash it because you felt like dying that day and you decided to take me with you. You can't risk somebody else's life. You can risk your own, but you can't risk somebody else's. And that is what they're doing with all of this hatred legislation. Also, this is why we have laws protecting same-sex marriage, because there are a lot of people in this country that feel uncomfortable with it, and they would like for you not to be happy. But we do have the pursuit of happiness as a grounding principle in American culture and society. We also have people that don't want to see interracial marriage, but Clarence and Ginny fell in love, and we don't care. The law protects them. We used to have school segregation where separate was equal, but it wasn't. And we said that's wrong. So we made laws, even though some people were more comfortable with segregated schools than they are with desegregated schools. Too bad for you. I feel sorry for you, but it doesn't mean that you get your way. And again, we don't have a national religion because we have an establishment clause. And the reason why we keep church and state separate is for the preservation of church and state. We like them both equally. I mean, this is craziness. This is really craziness. And the reason he's giving you there is really the reason, okay? The reason that the governor of Utah gave you for this hyper-focus on a small part of our population that just wants to live, that just wants to be productive, that just wants to be happy, or have hope that one day they could be happy and comfortable in their own skin, is because other people need to otherize them in order to feel better about themselves. That is not America. Okay, it's not anything that America stands for. I just gave you a billion examples of why we have laws, because people do want to otherize other people, and they don't want to extend the same courtesies to others as they would to their own friends and family, and that's just too bad for them. Because we don't have a country that indulges them in their hatred. We don't have a country that indulges them in their discrimination. We don't have a country that indulges them in their dictatorial, authoritarian nature. We have a country that says if we make a mistake, we want to make a mistake on the side of people who are striving. People who are doing the right thing when no one's looking. That's whose side we would like to err on if we're going to make a mistake. We don't tell women they can't have access to contraception because it makes you feel uncomfortable. And if it's your religious belief that you can't bake a cake for a same-sex couple, then your God sucks. You have a God of hatred, and that is not anything that anybody should aspire to worship. Somebody somewhere made a mistake when they taught you about love and that God is love and that treating other people the way you would like to be treated is the golden rule. Doing unto other, that is the rule by which we try and have a nation. If you want to tell me that Christianity is deeply rooted in the Constitution, deeply rooted in American culture, then I would say, yes, it is, if you still value the golden rule. And if you don't, your God sucks. Your religion is bogus. You should never, ever erect a church and ask people to sit in the pews and worship with you a God that dictates hate. Or that your God favors discrimination or bigotry or slavery. Ephesians. Yeah, I know. Leviticus. Good. Try the Sermon on the Mount, because that's what Jesus said. The Beatitudes are beautiful. Try that.
Call in, connect.
All right.
To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right. Rick in Minnesota. Hello.
Hi. I'm concerned. I've been told that transgenders with penises excel in women's sports. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I only know one swimmer that swam for Penn State, and that's it. Who else? What other evidence do you have that they're
That's it.
That's
I
it.
guess
Just the
that's
one?
it.
Just the one?
Yeah.
And why does it capture your imagination in this way, Rick?
Pardon?
Why does it capture your imagination in this way?
Because I do believe, I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but I used to race horses, and the male horses usually don't race against the female horses.
So do your horses compete in any other arena? Like, do they compete in education or business or math or science?
That's it.
Okay, so
But
then you're talking about
I'm
an
just
animal, and I'm talking about a child. Can you see how that's not a good comparison? Yeah. Can you see how that's not a good comparison? So I ask you, why are you super, like captured by the idea that there was one swimmer at Penn State who was a transgendered swimmer.
Okay, I don't know.
Also, why is it that you don't have a problem?
More.
Well, why would you, hone in on that? Why is that a thing that stood out to you that you needed? Have you ever called me before? Have you ever called me before?
Never.
What made you do that on this topic?
Because I do believe a guy with a penis shouldn't compete against regular girls.
So should a guy with a penis compete against me for ratings, or should a guy with a penis compete against me in business?
Girls are smarter than guys.
Or education, right? So the line that you draw is swimming, just swimming, the swim team.
Well, because in I don't know, wherever they have women's sports. I don't know how you're younger than me.
So
but
I just explained to you that in Utah there are literally 85,000 athletes in school, okay, in various grades of school, And 4 of them are transgender children. Do you really think that the entire legislature there had to legislate that those 4 children, maybe they're 7 years old or 10 years old, can't compete with boys? Did you really think that that was worth their time and effort?
Well, probably not at that
Right.
age, you know.
So why is it capturing your attention is what I want to know.
Because of that story of the swimmer.
Uh-huh.
You're so right, though. He never called in on,
because he doesn't really care. It's just, you know what it is? It's just odd. It's odd to him.
This is the one.
He can't explain how that could be okay. He just, for the life of him, cannot explain how that could be okay. Just like back in the day, you probably couldn't explain how 2 guys could raise a child. Why, that's just inexplicable. That should never happen. And now it happens all the time, and the kids are fine. In fact, the kids are better because they're in families that love them. Okay? Instead of, not in families. I mean, these kids are, for the most part, they're surrogates kids or they're adopted kids or they're fostered kids. Worked out great, didn't it? Mind your own business when it comes to medical intervention for children and body dysmorphia, which is what it is. Let me explain it this way. It's my favorite explanation. So people are judging, just like this caller in Minnesota, Rick over there, thinks that the penis decides the gender. The gender. But this tells me Rick is bad in bed. Because it's not the penis that determines the experience of the sex. It's the brain. The brain is the organ that determines the level of enjoyment. The brain is like the hard drive of the computer, and the penis is simply the keyboard. Do you understand? It's not the determining factor into how much computing can get done or how much good information you get out. It's the hard drive. Your brain is your hard drive, okay? The organs that you are referring to, the ones that you think are determining gender orientation or sexual orientation, that is not where it's happening. It's happening in your brain. Your brain is deciding your gender. That is just the way it is. And the idea that we don't want to talk about that big giant organ sitting on top of you, that I only need to talk about the one that's sticking out of you, is bizarre. And I don't know why I always have to explain that to people. But that is really the deduction of men, especially, that the penis is the prowess. The penis is the determining factor in sex. Got news for you. Keep your penis. I'm not gay, but you could keep your penis. Really. It doesn't happen there, okay? It's happening in my head. That's what seduction is, okay? I don't even want to get into porn, but it's happening in your head. You understand that? It is. And your head is determining what turns you on. Your head, your brain, has figured out what you actually respond to physically. But it all starts in your brain, and you know it. And you know it. So let's not obsess over, one Penn State swimmer and saying the whole world must come to a screeching halt while we figure out whether or not the penis was the deciding factor in whether or not that swimmer identified as a female athlete or a male athlete, and that she is really a he who cheated. Because see, that's where people go. That's where people go with stuff they don't understand. They just put it at the lowest common denominator, which is someone stole something from you. Someone stole something. Someone cheated. Someone did the wrong thing. It's your hatred that's wrong. It's your lack of understanding of other people's situation that's wrong. This is why I said, he agreed I'm smarter than he is. Okay, he said that point blank. Women and men can compete in education. Women and men can compete in math, in science, in business, in space, okay? just can't compete on the Penn State swim team. You think about how stupid that is as a cause. Wouldn't you want to work on, making competition even easier for women and men in business and sports, business, education, math, science, and space, instead of, worrying about a swim team at Penn State?
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Okay, I understand you don't want to hear about your penis from me. Or maybe you do. That could be your thing, too. I don't know, and I don't really care. But I do think that you should listen to a science person, somebody from Stanford, somebody who is a brain endocrine neurologist, someone who understands how gender is determined by a human. This is a clip I played a long time ago. I get a lot of requests for it. This is Dr. Sapolsky. He's a Stanford endocrinologist.
So the question becomes what to do with the standard medical interpretation of being transgender, which is you have someone who for some reason thinks they are a sex different from what they actually are. And it turns out something very different is going on. Okay, you look in the brain, and there's all sorts of parts of the brain that are sexually dimorphic, which means that on the average, some trait about that part of the brain differs between males and females, and that's in lab rats and in non-human primates and humans. And, on the average, individual differences overlap, but nonetheless, all sorts of stuff in the brain is sexually dimorphic. And just a listing there of some of these, people spend their entire lives studying sexual dimorphism of some of these parts of the brains. So you take somebody now who chromosomally is sex A and gonadally is sex A and hormonally and secondary sexual characteristics and genitalia is sex A, and nonetheless they insist from as long as they can remember, they felt like they were sex B. And you look in their brain, and what a bunch of studies have shown now is all the sexually dimorphic parts of the brain in that person's brain is more like what you see in sex B rather than in sex A. And this is independent of if they are actually transitioning to the other sex, if they've taken any sex hormone manipulations, whatever, independent of that. When you look at somebody whose every bit of their body says they are sex A, and they say, I have always felt like I am sex B, you look in the brain, and the brain says sex B.
Hello. I hope that was easily understood, because the brain is also a sex organ, and people just don't care to know that. And that's bad, because that means, you have no earthly idea how to really seduce another human being, or how to, unite with another human being on that sexual plane that we're all jonesing to get to. And it's really pretty basic. It's in your brain. It's all in your brain. And so what he's saying is there are parts of your brain that are sex A parts, and there are parts of your brain that, are sex B parts. And when the parts of your brain are sex A, but your body looks like sex B, and your hormones look like sex B, and your secondary traits like you grow hair on your face is sex B, but your brain, your hypothalamus and your amygdala and your hippocampus are sex A, that is what you are. You are what your brain tells you you are. You are what those organs are identifiable as in science. In science. It's not an opinion. It's a science. And that particular organ, your brain, determines your sex, your gender. Done. Nancy in Florida.
Hey, I am a first-time caller, Randy. And I wanted to let you know that I've been thinking about these 4 kids. And what gets me is how an entire Republican Party can be intimidated by 4 children.
They
must be amazingly powerful children.
They're very powerful children. They're super.
Yes, they
they're
are.
super children.
I hope somebody's telling them every day that they're awake. Kids, you don't know what kind of power you have if you can make a whole political party in the United States terrified of you.
Yes, and legislate against you.
You bet.
Yeah, because you're so fearsome. Yeah,
You bet.
Yeah, but I mean, this all kidding aside, it's that the 4 children are an issue for them because it helps them, not hurts them.
Absolutely.
It helps them, right?
That's exactly the truth.
But that's how
what
disgusting and
what
disgraceful
really
that party is. That's what I'm saying. If that party is based on hurting children, and it is, they've actually said out loud that the cost of being free is dead children. They've said it since Sandy Hook. They said it in Aurora. They said it in Uvalde. They say it all the time. That's the cost of freedom. That's the price of the Second Amendment is dead children, right? So
and I agree with you. And what worries me is the damage they're doing to these children, and what that will do to them with the kind of pressure they're under right now.
Yeah, I know.
It's just unbelievably
it's not
cruel.
Like it was hard enough when we were kids and we didn't have social media. Do you know what I mean? We didn't know how many people liked us, and we didn't know how many bullies there were that were going to go home with us, that were going to end up in our bedrooms with us, just taunting us and haunting us. And I mean, I don't know how kids today do it. I really don't. But that's why kids today are so damn depressed. That's why there's so much suicide. That's why there's so much depression and deaths of despair.
You're right.
I know.
And you're right. I'm a former.
So if they cared about
educator.
children, if they cared at all, okay, they would legislate not about sports, not about the 4 kids that might play in middle school sports, okay, on the team that they identify with. That's not your problem. They would legislate guardrails for things like social media. They would do, age restrictions on TikTok. They would do all kinds of things to protect children for real, okay?
You would notice, of course, that the only thing that they ever avoid are things that can actually hurt and harm people. Yes, if they want to really help people, they could, but they want nothing to do with it. They want to take they want to take their ability to hurt and harm people to the furthest extent that they can take it.
Yeah, because their supporters, if you will, the people who would vote for them, want them to be as cruel as they want to be themselves. They want to live vicariously through the Ted Cruzes of the world, through the Marjorie Taylor Greens, through the Boeberts. They want to live through the bullies. They want those bullies to bully beyond bullying. They want them to really hurt people and harm people and get people, kill people, shoot people, make the kids go through live shooter drills. They don't care, okay? They have
they don't.
They have zero, right? I mean, and if they really were into protecting children, with their hyper focus on pedophiles and stuff like that, right? They're so on the fence.
Yeah, they're good. They're good about talking about it, but they do nothing.
Well, they harbor them. They harbor lots and lots of reverends and pastors and priests that have very large histories of abusing a very large quantity of children, right?
The statistics are all there.
They are. And if they really wanted to, protect children, they might be interested in legislating things like lead in the drinking water, lead in the pipes. But no, they want to take the most vulnerable population and exploit them, which is really, abuse.
It is. It is an entire political party wanting to abuse 4 kids.
And women. Don't forget us.
Well, I'm not forgetting us.
Yeah, don't forget us. They want to abuse us too to make their. I guess it makes their. I guess
they hate everybody that's not white and male.
I don't know what their deal is. I mean, listen, just be a better man. That would be my best advice. Just be a better person.
Sure.
Right? But no, they need to, abuse others to feel good about themselves. That's sadism. And that's really twisted. And that's not a governing principle. Caligula thought it was. And look what happened to him. Isn't he the one that actually made a horse a senator?
Yes, he did, actually, and made his troops march on an enemy naked.
Right. Say, what could go wrong there? John in California.
Hi there.
Hey.
Let me turn this. So, yeah, first time, long time since Ralph Nader launch at Air America.
Oh, my God.
Anyway, thank you so much for your show. I've always appreciated it. And so you're going to talk, well, you know, all the stuff you're talking about now, of course, it's all so important and amazing that you know, people are getting all so worked up about this minuscule little thing when going back to the first segment, talking about the energy use in Texas and ways, basically the heat wave.
Thanks for calling. Have a great day.
Oh, why? No.
Why? What? Why? We had no time. You were looking at me like, get rid of him.
Oh, that's not the look I was giving you. I was just wanting him to get to his point.
Get to his point. Well, you know, you have to tell him that we have a minute left. Get to your point.